The sky was dark grey when Ethan stood in the long line outside the central distribution centre. Cold wind blew through the cracks in his jacket, but he didn't move. Everyone was waiting quietly. No one spoke, no one smiled. Today was the day. Each citizen would receive their stress relief companion. After the great peace treaty between Earth and the alien race called the Zarathi, a new program was started. Humans had helped the Zarathi win a major war. In return, the alien empire gifted Earth something they said would change lives: biological companions made from their own people. These companions were designed to help humans relax, feel calm, and forget their worries. They were living beings, but trained to serve. Ethan didn't ask for one, but the government made it mandatory. For your mental health, they said. It's free, it's safe, it's necessary. He didn't trust it, but what choice did he have? Finally, his number was called. He stepped into a clean white room with soft lights. A woman in a grey uniform typed on a screen. Name? She asked. Ethan Wells. She nodded. You've been assigned Companion Unit 243ZF. Please sign here. Ethan signed. A side door opened with a soft hiss, and then she walked in. She was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that shimmered softly like moonlight. Her eyes were deep violet, glowing faintly. She wore flowing silver robes that covered her from neck to feet. Unlike other companions Ethan had seen, who smiled, bowed, or showed obedience, this one looked away from him. Her head was slightly lowered, her arms close to her chest. This is Rena, the official said, your personal Zarathi companion. She will live with you to assist you and respond to your needs. Ethan glanced at her. She doesn't look very comfortable. She's new. Some take time to adjust. Rena's eyes flicked up at him just for a second. There was fear in them. Ethan frowned. Do I have a choice? The woman shook her head. No, she's registered under your name now. You are responsible. Ethan looked at the alien girl again. Her face was still, but her hands were shaking. He sighed. All right, let's go. Back at his small apartment, Ethan offered her food. She didn't touch it. He showed her the guest room. She stood in the doorway but didn't enter. You can rest, he said gently. She shook her head. He tried asking questions, where she was from, how old she was, what she liked. She didn't reply. Ethan sat on the edge of the couch, rubbing his temples. You're not like the others, are you? Still no answer. That night he heard soft sounds from her room. Not talking, not crying, just movement, like pacing. He got up, knocked, once and opened the door slightly. She was sitting in the corner, knees pulled to her chest, still wearing her robe. Her head turned sharply when he opened the door, her eyes wide. I'm sorry, he said quickly, raising his hands. I just heard something. She didn't speak, but her eyes were watching him, alert like a scared animal. You're safe here, Ethan said quietly. I'm not going to hurt you. He backed away and closed the door. In the morning, Ethan made pancakes and placed a plate in front of her. At least try, he said with a small smile. She looked at the food, then at him, then slowly picked up the fork. She took one bite, chewed carefully, swallowed, then took another bite. He smiled. See, not poison. For a moment her lips twitched. Maybe a smile, maybe not. That afternoon, Ethan looked through the digital companion manual. It talked about bonding, exercises, emotional connection steps, and even physical intimacy guidelines. He tossed it aside. I don't care about their program, he muttered. You're not a machine. I won't force you. From the corner of the room, Rena looked up. That night, she finally spoke, her voice soft. Why don't you touch me? Ethan was surprised. What? All the others, the humans, she looked away. They expect us to undress, to serve. Ethan leaned forward. Is that what they told you? She nodded slowly. He shook his head. I'm not them. You're not an object. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. Rena's eyes filled with something he hadn't seen before. confusion, maybe even hope. For the first time, she whispered. His name, Ethan, and for the first time he saw her as more than just a gift. She was someone broken, hiding, maybe even running, and he decided right then he'd protect her, no matter what she was hiding. The rain tapped softly on the window. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, watching the drops race down the glass. Rena stood silently near the wall, her hands folded tightly in front of her. She had not moved much since yesterday, but something had changed. Last night, she said his name, a whisper, a small crack in her silence. Ethan wanted to believe it meant she was starting to trust him. He poured a second cup of tea and slid it across the table. "It's warm," he said gently. "You don't have to drink it, but it might help." Rena looked at the steam rising from the cup, then at him. Slowly, carefully, she walked over and sat down. Her hands shook as she held the cup. Ethan pretended not to notice. For a while they sat in silence. Then she spoke, so quietly he almost missed it. "Do they watch us?" Ethan blinked. "What?" "The government, the ones who sent me. Do they see inside your home?" He sat up straighter. "I don't think so." "Why?" She didn't answer, just stared into her cup. "Rena, what happened to you?" Her fingers tightened on the cup. "You shouldn't ask. It's dangerous to know." Now Ethan was sure she was hiding something, and whatever it wasn't small. Later that day, Ethan went out to work at the repair yard. He gave Rena a key and told her to lock the door behind him. She didn't ask why, she just nodded. When he returned in the evening, the apartment was quiet, but something felt off. He walked into the living room and saw the curtain by the window pulled wide open. She was standing there, staring out at the city. Her silver robe shimmered in the streetlight, but she didn't move when he entered. "Rena?" he asked softly. She turned, and for the first time he saw her eyes clearly. They were still violet, still glowing, but behind the beauty there was something else. Fear, pain, and beneath it all, anger. "Did someone hurt you?" Ethan asked. She hesitated. Then she lifted her sleeve. Ethan's breath caught. Faint lines, scars, ran across her wrist and up her arm. Not new, but not old either. He stepped forward slowly, not wanting to scare her. "They told us we were created for service," she said, voice shaking, "to make humans happy, but before they gave us away, they tested us." Her hands trembled. "We were punished when we disobeyed. We were taught pain so we would understand pleasure. They called it programming." Ethan's fists clenched. "That's sick." "I escaped before they finished," she whispered. "That's why I don't follow the rules." He stepped closer, gently lowering her arm. "You don't have to follow anything. Not here." Rena stared at him, searching his face. "You don't want to touch me? To use me?" Ethan's voice was firm. "Never." Tears welled in her glowing eyes. One slid down her cheek, glowing faintly like starlight. "I don't understand you," she said. "You're kind." Ethan gave her a small smile. "You'll get used to it." That night, while Rena slept on the floor mat beside the heater, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about what she said. Created for service, trained through pain, punished into obedience. What kind of treaty was this? He got up and pulled out the companion handbook again. It was thick, filled with peaceful words, comfort, relaxation, mental wellness. But now the words felt fake, hollow. He flipped to the back. There was a section marked Special Cases. And there it was, a line in small letters. "Units labeled ZF may require additional monitoring. Do not interfere with behavioral protocols. Report irregularities immediately." ZF, that was her code. 240 ZF. He stared at it. So she wasn't just any unit. She was special or dangerous. Or maybe both. A thought hit him hard. What if someone was coming to take her back? In the middle of the night, Ethan woke suddenly. A soft sound, like a faint mechanical hum, filled the room. He slipped out of bed and followed it to the kitchen. Rena was there, sitting on the floor. In her lap, her glowing wristband blinked softly. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked gently. She didn't look up. "I'm trying to block the signal." "Signal?" "They use it to track us, and if they find me, they'll reset me." Ethan knelt beside her. "What does that mean?" She turned to him, her voice hollow. "They'll erase who I am, my thoughts, my memories. I won't remember you." Ethan's chest tightened. "Then we'll stop them," she looked at him. "You would fight for me?" He nodded. "I already am." She stared at him, her eyes wide. Then, for the first time, she smiled. Just a little, but it was real. Ethan couldn't sleep even after Rena smiled. For the first time, his heart remained heavy. She was still in danger. She had told him the truth. Someone was tracking her through the glowing bracelet on her wrist. A soft hum still came from it, even when she wasn't touching it. It pulsed like a quiet heartbeat, always watching, always listening. The next morning, as Rena rested on the balcony in the sun, Ethan sat at his desk and stared at the bracelet she had left behind. For the first time, she trusted him enough to take it off. His fingers hovered over it. He didn't want to invade her privacy, but if this thing was connected to those who wanted to erase her, maybe he could learn something to protect her. He picked up his old diagnostic tool, a scanner used for ship repairs, and connected the bracelet to it. The screen flashed unrecognized code. Warning, deep file encryption. But Ethan wasn't just any mechanic. Before he moved to this broken city, he was a system tech in the Outer Fleet. He knew how to break into hidden systems. He typed a few override commands and forced access. A video file opened. The screen flickered, showing a clean silver room. Rena stood inside it, younger, with shorter hair. Her wrists were chained to a glowing platform. Her eyes were blank. Around her, tall Zarathi scientists watched her like she was a lab animal. A voice echoed through the room. "Unit 243, ZDF. Subject is resisting pleasure compliance. Increase neural stimulation." Rena gasped and trembled. Her body jerked. She bit her lip to stop herself from crying. Another voice spoke. "If emotional rebellion continues, initiate pain loop until she begs for relief." The video showed her screaming, then collapsing. A final voice whispered coldly, "She will break. They all do. Pain builds obedience. Obedience breeds loyalty." Ethan's hands shook as he stopped the recording. His throat was dry. This wasn't training. This was torture, and they called it stress relief. Behind him, a soft voice said, "You saw it, didn't you?" Ethan turned. Rena stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Her silver robe fluttered in the light breeze, but her face was still. "I didn't mean to spy," Ethan said quickly. "I just wanted to—" She walked toward him and sat down beside the scanner. "I knew you would look. I hoped you would." "You hoped?" She nodded slowly. "I needed you to understand." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Understand what? That they tortured you and sent you here as a gift? That they turned you into something to be used?" Her voice was soft but strong. "Yes." Ethan leaned forward. "You're not a thing, Rena. You're not a unit. You're a person. You have a mind, a soul." Tears welled in her eyes, but she held them back. "Not many humans think that way." "Well, I do," he said, his voice tight. She looked down. "There are others like me. Not all escaped. Some are still in those labs." Ethan sat back, stunned. "They're still doing this?" She nodded. He stood up and began pacing. "This isn't peace. This is a lie." Suddenly, a loud knock echoed through the apartment. Ethan froze. Rena turned pale. Another knock, then a cold voice from behind the door. "Earth security. Open up for inspection," Rena whispered. "They found me." Ethan grabbed her hand. "We're not opening that door." He led her to the back of the apartment where he kept his old tools. He opened a storage closet and moved a false wall panel, revealing a narrow maintenance tunnel behind it. "Get in," he said. "Follow it 3 blocks west. It opens near the scrapyard. Hide in the old shuttle shell there." "I won't leave you," she said, trembling. "You have to. I'll delay them. I promise I'll find you later." Her hand shook as she stepped into the tunnel. Before disappearing, she looked at him one last time. "Ethan, thank you." He gave her a sad smile. "Stay free." She vanished into the dark. Moments later, the door was blasted open. 3 officers in black suits stepped inside. Their faces were calm, too calm. "We're here for Unit 243 ZF, the leader said. "Her signal was traced here." Ethan crossed his arms. "She's not here. Maybe your system's broken." The officer smirked. "Or maybe you're protecting stolen property." Ethan didn't answer. The men searched the apartment but found nothing. The leader looked frustrated. "We'll be back," he said. "And if we find you hiding her, you'll be erased too." When they left, Ethan slumped against the wall, heart pounding. Hours later, under the stars, he found her in the junkyard, cold, hidden in a shell of a broken shuttle. She was curled up, waiting. When she saw him, she didn't speak. She just ran into his arms. No fear, no shame, just relief and hope. 3 days passed. Ethan and Rena didn't return to the apartment. They lived in the shadows of the junkyard now, surrounded by broken ships, rusty machines, and silence. The old shuttle shell had become their hideout. Ethan rewired its solar panels to provide light and heat. Rena didn't complain. She sat quietly, helping him where she could. Her hands were still unsure, but her eyes had changed. The fear hadn't vanished, but something else was growing in her, trust. Ethan tried to act normal, like none of this was strange, like running from government trackers with a traumatized alien girl was just another day in his life. But every time, he looked at her sleeping, curled near the heater with a blanket over her shoulders, a strange thought came to his mind. She was never meant to be someone's toy. She was meant to live, to choose. On the 4th day, Ethan returned from the city with food. He brought dried fruits, bread, and a small box of chocolate bars. When he offered one to Rena, she stared at it. "It's sweet," he explained, unwrapping it. She sniffed it, then took a careful bite. Her eyes widened. She blinked fast, then took another bite, bigger this time. Ethan laughed. "That's a yes." She smiled faintly, chocolate on her lip. It was a small moment, but for Ethan it felt like something big, like the beginning of a life that wasn't filled with pain. That night, as the stars glittered above the junkyard, Rena sat near the firelight and whispered, "Do you think they'll stop looking for me?" Ethan sighed. "They don't want to lose control. You were part of something big, important." Her hands tightened around her knees. "Then they'll never stop." Before Ethan could reply, he heard a sound, footsteps on metal. Too soft for drones, too heavy for rats. He motioned to Rena silently, and she quickly slipped into the back of the shuttle shell. Ethan stepped outside, a wrench hidden behind his back. A tall man in a clean black coat stood between the wrecks, his shoes spotless despite the dirt. His hair was slick, his expression calm. Too calm. "Ethan Wells," the man said with a smooth voice. "We need to talk." Ethan didn't relax. "You from the agency?" The man smiled. "Not officially. Let's just say I'm between departments." He walked slowly toward Ethan. "You're harboring Unit 243 ZF. Ethan's jaw clenched. "Her name is Rena." "Names are for citizens," the man said. "She's a project, a very expensive one." "She's not a project. She's alive. She's broken property." Ethan's grip tightened on the wrench. "Leave." The man raised a hand. "Let's not be rude. I didn't come to fight. I came to offer options." "I don't want your deal." "But you haven't heard it," the man said smoothly. "Return the unit. We wipe her clean, erase the pain, erase the memories. She'll live a peaceful, controlled life. No fear, no sadness, just calm obedience." Ethan stepped forward. "She's already learning peace without forgetting who she is." The man shrugged. "Humans are always so emotional, but if you say no—" He glanced around. "Next time, we won't be so gentle." He dropped a small black card onto the ground. "You have 2 days." Then he turned and walked into the shadows. When Rena came out, her face was pale. She had heard everything. "They want to erase me again," she whispered. "Start over." Ethan knelt in front of her. "They won't." She shook her head. "You don't understand. They don't just erase memories. They rewrite us, change our names, our voices, even our thoughts. I won't be me anymore." Ethan placed a hand over hers. "Then we'll run again." She looked into his eyes. "You'd give up everything." "For me?" He didn't answer. He just nodded. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat outside the shuttle thinking. He remembered the first time he saw her, silent, scared, hiding behind silver robes. He remembered the scars, the whispers, the small smile after the chocolate, and now the way she clutched his hand like it was the only solid thing in her life. He took the black card and placed it in the fire. It curled and burned. They weren't going to take her, but far across the city, in a high tower, a red light blinked. A voice echoed in a dark chamber. "Subject located. Prepare recovery team." And, somewhere in the night, machines woke up. The wind howled through the metal bones of the junkyard as Ethan tightened the last bolt on the hovercart. He had turned the wreckage of an old delivery bike into a silent, fast escape vehicle. The wheels didn't hover smoothly yet, but they worked well enough to run, and they would have to, because they were out of time. Rena stood at the edge of the scrap mound, eyes fixed on the distant city skyline. Her violet eyes glowed softly in the dusk, filled with worry. "They're coming tonight," she whispered. "I can feel the signal growing stronger." Ethan looked up from the engine. "Then we leave before nightfall." She hesitated. "Where will we go? They control all the inner zones." Ethan tossed her a dark coat. "We go where they can't follow. Outside. The walls. Sector 10's border station is still offline. If we cross through Block 9 before dawn, we can make it." Rena looked at the battered hovercart and then back at him. "You believe in impossible things." "I believe in you," he said. And that was enough. They left just as the city lights turned. Red for curfew. The sky was low with clouds, and security drones hummed far overhead like angry bees. Ethan drove the cart through abandoned lanes, broken tunnels and alleyways no longer mapped. Rena held on tight, hidden under her coat, her breathing shallow. They passed old shops, burned-out clinics, and silent streets filled with shadows. Block 9 was ahead, a stretch of ruined apartments and collapsed highways. Years ago, a reactor leak forced thousands to evacuate. The place had been left to rot, but tonight it was their only path to freedom. As they entered Block 9, the cart's sensors began to flicker. Radiation wasn't strong anymore, but it still messed with electronics. The hovercart jerked and buzzed. Ethan fought to keep it running. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed down the narrow street. A spotlight snapped on above them. "Halt!" Unauthorized movement detected. A metal drone dove down from the rooftops, aiming straight for the cart. "Hold on!" Ethan shouted. He swerved hard, crashing through a wire fence into the ruins of a parking structure. The drone followed, firing a stun bolt that cracked the pavement behind them. Sparks flew. They couldn't outrun it, not like this. Rena stood up, her coat flying off. "Don't!" Ethan shouted, but she raised her glowing wristband, and for the first time she used it. A sharp pulse of blue light shot out from her palm, striking the drone mid-air. It spun wildly, then exploded above them, raining metal shards. Ethan stared. "You had weapons," she shook her head. "No. I rewired my signal into a defense pulse. I've been working on it at night." He blinked. "You're smarter than anyone gives." "You credit for," she shrugged. "They designed me to learn fast. They reached the far side of Block 9 before sunrise, but the road ahead was blocked. 6 armored vehicles, each marked with the Zarathi emblem and the Earth Union crest. Soldiers in dark suits surrounded the gate. Behind them, one figure stood still, the same man who came to the junkyard, the agency's messenger. He smiled coldly as Ethan stopped the cart. "Did you think you could escape the system, Ethan?" he said. "She belongs to us." "She doesn't belong to anyone," Ethan snapped. The man sighed. "You're forcing us to do this the hard way." He raised his hand. From the sky, more drones descended, sleek, silver, deadly. Rena stepped forward, pulling off the bracelet and holding it up. "I'm not yours," she said firmly. She crushed the bracelet under her heel. A sharp, high-pitched signal burst from the ruins of the bracelet. The drones buzzed, shook, then fell to the ground motionless. "What did you do?" the agent growled. Rena's voice was steady. "I destroyed the control code." The man's calm face finally cracked. "You don't know what you've done. You've broken a billion-credit experiment." Ethan stepped in front of her. "She's not an experiment. She's free." For a long moment no one moved. Then a strange sound echoed from behind the gate, clapping. A group of citizens had gathered. Some had old companion units beside them, alien girls who now looked less robotic and more aware. One man stepped forward. "She's not the only one who wants freedom." Another shouted, "We know what you did." The soldiers looked around, uneasy. The agent hissed, "This isn't over." But he knew he had lost. He turned, signaled retreat, and the convoy pulled away. The gates of Sector 10 opened as sunlight hit the edge of the city. Ethan and Rena crossed the border, their hearts pounding, their clothes torn, but their eyes full of fire. Behind them, a movement had begun. Ahead of them, freedom waited. Together, the sun was warm in Sector 10, but warmth didn't mean safety. Ethan and Rena moved carefully through the outer village, once a border post, now a quiet farming settlement where the Union's cameras no longer reached. Children played in dusty lanes and families repaired broken rooftops. These people didn't ask questions. They had seen too much, lost too much. They simply nodded when Ethan asked for shelter. An old woman gave them a room above her store. "Just keep your heads low," she said, "and don't trust the quiet." Ethan understood. At night, Rena sat by the window, watching fireflies drift across the fields. Her voice broke the silence. "Do you know what pain is like when it's programmed?" Ethan looked up from the small table where he was fixing an old radio. "Tell me." She didn't turn. "They didn't just hurt us physically. They made pain repeat like a loop. If you screamed, it restarted. If you begged, it paused, then came back stronger." Ethan felt his stomach twist. "They told us it would help humans relax, that our suffering created calm waves. They called it balance. I called it dying slowly." He stood and walked to her. "You're not dying anymore." She looked at him, her violet eyes glowing faintly. "I still feel it, Ethan. In my bones, in my breath. Some nights I wake up and I'm back in that white room. You're here now," he whispered, "with me." She reached for his hand. Her touch was gentle but cold. "I thought I was broken," she said, "but I've learned something since I met you." He waited. "My pain, it's not just programming. It's real because I am real." He held her hand tighter. "Yes, you are." Days passed. Rena helped the villagers with repairs. She learned how to grow food, how to laugh at small things, how to walk without fear. The kids liked her. They gave her flowers, and she wore them in her silver hair. But Ethan knew it couldn't last, not while the system still hunted people like her. One night a boy came running to their door. "There's someone asking for you," he said, breathless. "Says he's a traveler, but he has shiny boots." Rena froze. Ethan grabbed his tool bag. "Let's go." They slipped into the shadows behind the barn, cutting through the tall grass. From the ridge, they watched the man at the village gate. He was dressed like a trader, but his stance was wrong, too stiff, too alert. He wasn't here to trade. Rena's voice shook. "They found us again." Ethan clenched his jaw. "We leave at first light." That night they packed everything, tools, food, and the last working part of the drone Rena had downed weeks ago. She had been studying it, learning. "I want to do more than run," she said. "I want to fight." "You already have," Ethan said. "Every day you live, it's a fight." But she looked at him differently now, sharper, not as someone afraid, but as someone becoming something stronger. As dawn lit the edge of Sector 10, they prepared to leave. But just before they crossed the ridge, a scream echoed behind them. The village. The trader wasn't a scout. He was a tracker, and he had sent out a silent signal. Ethan turned. "They're going after the villagers." Rena's eyes narrowed. "Because of us." They ran back. What they saw made Ethan's blood boil. Black-suited agents had arrived with shock rods and scanners. One of them pushed an old man to the ground. Another dragged a crying girl away from her mother. "They're looking for me," Rena whispered. "Then let them find you on your terms," Ethan growled. Rena stepped out into the open, her silver hair shining in the morning light. The agents stopped. "Unit 243ZF, one of them barked. "Surrender now." "I'm not a unit," she said calmly. "I'm Rena." She raised her hand. The modified drone core in her palm glowed bright blue. The lead agent stepped forward. "Don't be foolish. You don't want to fight." "I don't," she said, "but I won't run anymore." The device pulsed. A wave of electric energy blasted out, shorting the agent's equipment, knocking several of them off their feet. Villagers ran for cover as Ethan grabbed a fallen rod and knocked another agent out cold. The fight was short but loud. When it ended, the agents were on the ground, their ship fried. The villagers stared in awe. Ethan panted, leaning on the wall. Rena walked up to him, a bruise on her arm, but her eyes shining. "You said I was real," she said softly. "Today, I finally believe it." He smiled, breathless. "You're more than real, Rena. You're hope." Smoke still rose from the village gate. The agents lay defeated, their ship broken, their pride shattered, but Ethan knew this victory wouldn't last long. "They'll send more," he said, wrapping a cloth around his bruised arm. Rena nodded, breathing hard, a small cut on her cheek. "They won't stop until I disappear completely. And next time, they won't just come for me, they'll come for everyone who helped me." Ethan looked around at the villagers, people who had risked everything without knowing the full truth. "Then, it's time we stop hiding. It's time the galaxy sees you." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean we tell your story. Not just to one village, but to everyone." They didn't have much time, but the old communication tower outside the village was still standing, buried in vines and dust. It hadn't been used since the war, but Ethan was a mechanic and Rena a fast learner. Together they brought it back to life. Ethan rewired the core. Rena adjusted the signal strength. The old satellite dish groaned as it turned slowly toward the sky. "This will reach every major system," Ethan said. "Civilian channels, pirate feeds, black markets, even Earth itself." Rena's voice trembled. "They'll all see me." "Yes," he said, "but this time you'll be seen the right way." When the system was ready, Rena stepped in front of the camera. A simple lens, glowing red. She wore no robe, no makeup, no mask. Only her own face, bruised, tired but proud. Ethan stood beside her, silent support. She took a deep breath and spoke. "My name is Rena. I was created in a lab, not born, not raised, just made." She looked straight into the lens. "I was trained to feel pain so that humans could feel peace. They told me I wasn't alive, that I was just a tool, a comfort device, a gift." Her voice grew stronger. "But I remember every pain, every scar, every scream. And that means I am real. She touched her chest. I learned fear, then I learned kindness. From a man who saw me not as a machine, but as a person. His name is Ethan. He saved me. He believed in me. She paused. I am not the only one. There are more like me, hidden, erased, afraid. But we're not tools. We are not broken. Her final words burned into the camera. We are not property. We are people. Ethan hit the transmit button and the galaxy listened. It spread like wildfire. In the slums of Earth's lower cities, people watched the broadcast on cracked screens and wept. On luxury stations, rich officials paused mid-drink. On pirate ships, outlaws raised a toast. The truth had a face now, hers, and it could not be ignored. Within hours, the news flooded every network. Hashtags trended, debates erupted, military leaders were questioned, the Earth-Zarathi Treaty was suspended for investigation, the program was put on hold. All units labeled ZF were ordered. Protected until further review, Ethan and Rena's faces were everywhere, on screens, walls, posters. They became symbols of something the world had forgotten: dignity, choice, freedom. But fame didn't matter to Rena. She sat quietly on the rooftop of the village store that evening, watching the stars. A soft breeze moved through her hair. Ethan joined her, 2 cups of warm tea in his hands. You did it, he said, sitting beside her. We did it, she replied softly. He nodded. How do you feel? She smiled, a little sad. Like I can breathe for the first time. The world sees me. He looked at her. What do you want now? She turned to him, her eyes full of light. I want a name that isn't a number. I want a home that's not a cage. And I want to stay beside the man who helped me find myself. Ethan smiled. Then stay. In the days that followed, other companions began to speak out. Some ran, some resisted, some simply stood up and said, I am not yours. And people began to listen. Laws changed, programs were rewritten. Healing took time, but it started with one girl, one who was never supposed to speak, one who refused to stay silent. Her pain was not a glitch. Her soul was not a script. Her name was Rena, and she changed everything.